I'm first going to tell you the players. I'm then going to tell you how it all works. And then I'll finish by telling you what's going on right now. Before I do that, I just want to have you understand one thing. What is at risk? What's at risk, I believe, is what kind of people we tell our children to be. Our jobs are to prepare our children for the future, the best we can. What if this is the future, really? What if the future is corruption? We tell our children to fight in wars for honor. There's no honor here. And these are the people asking you to go. How do we prepare our children if we leave this the way it is? You've got to tell them, you've got to deal with this. Okay, let's start by identifying the players. Let's start from the top. Governor Hassan. I met with Governor Hassan, gave her the narrative, spelt it all out clearly for her. She's admitted that. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, she was quoted in Manchester Union Leader, I believe, that she forwarded the narrative to the AG's office. All right. What if I told you Ms. Hassan owes her career, or I owe my start in politics to Jean Shaheen, the senator, who once was the governor. In fact, in just a few years, I ran for Senate and then subsequently governor. Each step of the way, Jean has provided invaluable guidance. I bet she has. I really do. So now we have a Shaheen loyalist as the governor. You don't get more loyal than Shaheen yourself, unless it's Bill Shaheen. Right here, Shaheen and Gordon. So we got a senator and we got a governor that owes their careers, Shaheen and Gordon. Senator Ayotte, who was your AG, when they drove the Ponzi scheme FRM right through her office. You know what her reward was? Senator. Take a look at Senator. Ayotte was your AG. Do you know where she worked? She worked for McLean. Your new AG, Foster. I just got thrown out of his office last week. You know where he came from? McLean, 29 years in fact. And Ayotte replaced Delaney. You know where Delaney came from? McLean. Do you know, quite literally, Delaney and Ayotte switched positions? That's right. Delaney took her job in McLean. Incestuous? So we could say McLean attorney has been in the AG's office for many years. So we've got McLean running the AG, we got Shaheen and Gordon on top, we still have McLean here. So we've just taken some of your most powerful people in the state, and we've come out of 2 law firms. We're not done yet. U.S. Attorney Kakavas. You know why we don't get any help from the FBI? He prevents it from happening. You see what Mr. Kakavas did? He worked with Wiggins and Norrie, and then he worked privately. Now he's the AG. He is the prosecutor of the people of FRM. Dodd and Farron, they were the principals. What if I told you that the defense attorney for FRM was a guy named Mark Howard? What if I told you again, just months before, Mark Howard was John Kakavas' partner? Right. You want to know what the odds are of that? There's 4,141 licensed attorneys in the state of New Hampshire. he picks his ex-partner. I'm not saying he picked it, or did he? Because I'll tell you why. If you're going to play catch, you better hope your best friend is on the other side. Otherwise, he could send you to jail. What better than that, your partner? I'll tell you how it went down. Kakavas goes to Dodd and Farrow. Goes, you know you're going to federal prison, right? Yeah. Now, would you like to get out of federal prison? Sure. Then shut up. Can't turn into big fish. Hildreth got away with it. But they couldn't let these guys get away. They give them a sweetheart deal. In fact, next to Jesus, Kakavas is the guy to give you the deal. He's the U.S. attorney. So let's say they got the deals of the century, which they did. What's the bet about early release? And now they have to. Even me calling it out, they can't take a chance of Farrell and Dodd talking. Let's take a look at something. What if I told you, let's go back to the FR thing. Do you know Kakavas didn't prosecute anybody else but those two? But there was one property on FRM that had 9 liens. That means they had to lift him 8 times. Kakavas prosecuted him. Where's the attorney that did that? I'll tell you something else. What if I tell you that the state of Maine and the state of Vermont notified the Appraisal Board of New Hampshire that said the appraiser that FRM was using is banned from the state of Maine and Vermont. It went to the New Hampshire Appraisal Board. You know who killed it? Hildreth. He just happened to be the banking commissioner, was on the appraisal board. So just think about something for a second. If you were to complain that you were defrauded, you were going to go to the banking commission, which was Hildreth, dead. We'll report it to the appraisal. Oh, Hildreth's dead. Dead again. You see these guys? They don't make mistakes. Took a Ponzi scheme just to catch a little one. Just exposed one of the boys, Hildreth, who was appointed by Shaheen. Okay. Now all these players, what I'm trying to show you is they come from these law firms. The major law firms. The ones that say, trust me. Pick up a New Hampshire magazine. See if you can find an ad with one of these guys, you will. And see if you can find where it doesn't say trust. Listen, when someone says trust me, don't. All right. So let's turn around and now that I've introduced you to some of these people, let's show how it works. See, I taught this organization 2 prongs. 2007, I was going through a divorce, so I was going through the courts there. And then in 2008 and 2007, I figured out FRM. See, what I did was, I went to my good buddy Alex Walker. There's a reason why he's in the center here. He was the youngest president of Divine Millimac. That guy, just a year before that, wheeled my mother around, my dying mother around in a wheelchair in California with me. My mother thought he was quite the gentleman. Except for this FRM I catch it partially because of what he was telling me. They were bringing him in to prosecute Hildreth. Wanted no part of that. They went out of town to do that. But he had told me, and I told him I had caught the same thing. See what happened now? He told the boys that I knew. So now the banking department put consent orders, implode, bad press, New Hampshire Telegraph in the bag, Manchester Union Leader in the bag. These are PR machines. The paper itself is worthless. Worthless. Not the politicians, not to persuade the cheap. All right. So, I then go through the divorce. I catch Ronna Wise, right here, one of the kingpins, literally taking my wife's therapist records. The therapist had indicated they were destroyed 3 different ways. By flood, no kidding, fire, and accidental shredding. When the truth was, my wife's a borderline personality disorder. They knew the divorce would bend over like this. Ronnie Wise took the records. I caught her. You know who I told? I caught my good friend, Alice Walker, who tells Wise she jumps off the case. This has been done often. Then they put in the relief pitcher, their stopper, or I like to call the fixer, Stephen Tober. He comes in, takes her place. Now you know how they do this? John Ross is my attorney. You know who John Ross' best friend in the world is? Him, Tober. Now I want you to remember this, because now they've got to go through statutes of limitations. They've got to play catch with a mentally ill woman and myself, who's my attorney is working with Tober to get Ronnie Wise off the statutes of limitations. I find out that they're friends. I try to have him removed, Tober. He never files the motion. See? Now I want you to remember, do you know where Kakavis worked? Let me show you something. Kakavis worked at Williams and Norrie. And so did his buddy Howard. You see here? This is an interesting, it's called the Kirby Award. Mary Ten, who was my divorce attorney, corrupt. Kelly Ayotte, there she is. Joe LaPlante, U.S. Attorney's Office. Mr. LaPlante was the judge in the Banking Commission case. He didn't take himself off. I had to force him off. You know what I found? I found an article where he called John Ross from Williams and Norrie his mentor. Interesting. There's Mark Howard. There's John Kakavis. Now, see, Mark and John Kakavis are good students because they learned from Ross at Wiggins. See what they did? They played catch. They had to trust their best friend. Ross knew that Tober was coming in, still maintained the fraud on the court, and they were going to play catch. Except for I caught them again. But who do I tell? Alex Walker. So now Walker tells them. So now these guys know I'm on them with the crime with FRM. And where they were going after mortgage specialists, they were trying to throw up a smoke screen for you people not to see what was happening, because they knew I was going after FRM. I had already been at the AG's office and the banking commissioner. And then through the courts, they knew I had them on fraud. And Walker warned them each and every time. So, now let's go. As I'm going up to Alex, I'm saying, we're going to have to sue these guys, the banking commission. You know what happens? We sue them. He didn't want to sue them. You know who we were looking for? Him. Him and the banking commissioner, Hildreth. They're the ones that put the information into Implode. Do you know who's the judge on Implode? Oh, you'll love this. McHugh. You're going to remember McHugh. He's the one who gets them all off. Well, McHugh turns around, puts an order in. My attorney doesn't tell me for 6 months. We had 30 days to get the names. He didn't ask for them. They were him. And after that, I fired him only to find out that we had the order. He couldn't expose himself. Pretty easy to find out. So, now that I had them, how do you get out? And again, Walker comes from Divine Millimat. We haven't left the box yet. Haven't left it. Leverage. That's what they understand. That's what the politicians understand. That's what the lawyers understand. And that's what they did to me. What's the leverage? Okay. I only have a licensed business in the state. They give me 3 or 4 bogus consent orders. How's this? We have a consent order that he was writing, the banking department's attorney, April of 11, with, because we got the emails back and forth, my attorney Walker. We got one problem though. We hadn't had the audit for another 2 months. They were already preparing the leverage. They already knew where I didn't know that I caught them on the implode. So they were creating a leverage. Now, leverage with what? The Banking Commission consent order. Except for after I told them to go to hell, they want to release the banking department. Interesting. There's going to be a lot of people wanting releases. Then, you know what he leveraged me with? The DRA and the IRS. You know what they did? They falsified my returns. Hard to believe? What if I have a forged copy of all the returns for the last 3 years? You know why they're all corrupted? Because they had to maintain the lie. Here was the leverage place. Walker, I will give you a release. If you give me, I will give you release from the banking department, IRS and DRA. Problem is, these were all manufactured. Every one of them. Was no money owed. And what I'm telling you, Walker asked for in a written release that says, if you give me a release of all this, all those issues will go away. Okay, just a little recall. Got the players. Got the leverage piece. But remember, I told them no to the deal. I even told them no with an offer of $50 million. Where it said, on July 15th, what parties were interested in making the settlement? Global settlement. Morris Mahoney, Wiggins and Norrie, and Divine Millimat, right here. All right. So let's get into the cover-up. Because I said no. These guys were committed with false tax returns. They assumed I'd take the deal. So now let's look at the cover-up. Now the cover-up, now that they kept us in the courtroom, in the divorce court, for 5 years, $5 million, I believe my wife took maybe a tenth of what I offered her, and what was left of the estate. They took it. Now, I go after these players, sue them. See, I don't know that the courts are corrupt yet. I know they're corrupt, but I'm not sure they are. Until finally, Judge McHugh, the same one who got the banking commissioner off, the banking department off. What if I told you I took all of the players, my attorneys, her attorneys, filed a PCC complaint saying that they took me through statutes of limitations? What if I told you not one attorney, to this day, one that said I've lied about anything, and I dare you to do it? Sue me if I'm lying. So, I not only go to court, Morris Mahoney, my malpractice attorneys. See, now we're getting into the cover-up. Some of the best in Boston. Rob Fitzgerald, a computer expert, forensic. He gives me the best malpractice attorneys that he knows. And this is a guy who works for some of the biggest law firms. You know who hired him? John Ross. You know why he gave me Morris Mahoney and his good friend Nick Alexander? Because Liberty International, Liberty Mutual, goes, boys, you're screwing this up. He's catching you. He caught John Ross. He caught Jim Tenn, the next attorney. In fact, there's an email right here. A motion to mediate. That's what I asked Jim Tenn to do. And it's right here. I'm sure I spent tens of thousands on it. Except for he sent a copy to Alex Walker. See? Given to Alex Walker. Alex said, don't send and don't tell Mike. You know why? They were still trying to get through statutes of limitations. They didn't make a move without informing the quarterback. So Jim Tenn charged me another oh, I don't know, about $100,000 a month, along with his good buddy, Dupree. You know where Dupree worked? McLean. So I was paying $100 to $150 a month with lawyers whose instructions were to do nothing because we had to get through statutes of limitations. So I catch 10, then I catch Coughlin. So bottom line, they're going, you boys are dropping the ball. So the insurer, the good hand people, right? I don't know. Turn around and go, through Rob Fitzgerald, remember, Nick Alexander. Now, I'm thinking I'm getting the best malpractice attorneys money can buy. Except for, you know what we find out? That they're not malpractice attorneys at all. Nick Alexander and his sidekick, Eric Renner. You know what they were? They were insurance defenders. They were defending them. You see, Liberty International goes, these guys are dropping the balls. We're taking the ball away from you. We're giving it to the high-end guys in Massachusetts, the big law firm, the partner of Morris Mahoney, Nick Alexander, firmly in the back. See? Now we're into the cover-up. So I'm using their guy to sue these guys. Except for, he's waiting on statute of limitations for them. That sounds a little out there. What if I told you their biggest client is Liberty International? You know what his client is, Divine Melody? Liberty International. You know my good buddy John Freeman, who was working for me against the banking department? Liberty International. They were all conspiring. That piece took it over. He stopped. You know how I went through past statute of limitations here? He had to sit on it, which is what he did. Don't miss this. That means there were conflicts with everybody. Or that also means it never left the group in control of Liberty International. See? So, Nick's job was to file the lawsuits late. How about this? Morris Mahoney tells me they don't have a New Hampshire attorney. They have to pro-hoc in with another attorney. And that attorney's name is Hyder. Now, Hyder's important. He was my attorney. They use him to go into New Hampshire. Even though I find out that Morris Mahoney has an office on Elm Street. I guess they have no New Hampshire attorneys. See, they leveraged Hyder too. Hyder has a father who's also an attorney who lost his license but still practices. Walker found out because Hyder heard too much. In fact, the very first time Walker met Hyder, he called Hyder that evening and said, "Are we going to have a problem?" What I found out later was they leveraged Hyder with his father. The fact that his father was practicing in his office, they could have taken his license. Hyder now works for him. Hyder now takes on the IRS, which is all corrupted. They're not doing anything. Nick Alexander makes Hyder them use his license to get in. See? Leverage? Well, they leveraged that poor bastard right there. Not that he isn't corrupt. Now, Alexander and Renner don't file. They come to my office on a Friday and say, "We've got to file it today. But we can't sign it." Why? We get a conflict. A conflict? No kidding, you get a conflict. You had one from the beginning. Do you remember the contract I signed with you from the beginning that said you had no conflicts? See? They waited till the day it was to file. McHugh turns around and goes, 3 days late. Throws them all out. All these complaints with the PCC, by the way, the first one was Ronnie Wise here. Who do you think sits on the PCC? Her. She was out before I filed a complaint one day, she was off the next. And so is everybody else, because McHugh goes, statute of limitations, which statutes have to be proven when you should have known. I only had the whole world lying to me, so when should I have known? My good buddy Walker is setting up meetings on malpractice that were fraud, fake. All right, so now I'm in court. On that day, I have to sign all the cases pro se. Yet half of the cases were represented mortgage specialists, where I could not represent myself. They didn't even say that. They let me go in there to have those kicked in. Let's not forget, he's a partner at one of the most powerful law firms in the country. He didn't know that? Of course they knew it. Again, nobody's saying they're innocent. In fact, he's telling me it's so corrupt that he's got people at the feds that could help us with this. Play it for him. This isn't recorded.
Hi Mike, it's Nick. I got your email. I want to chat with you about some of those things. I think I can help you with the letter to the feds. Again, I'm one of the few lawyers who've been able to trigger an investigation.
Hit it. Don't miss this. He's one of the few attorneys that triggered a federal investigation with the FBI. He didn't, though. He's telling me he did, but he's not. In fact, my good buddy, John Friedman, who turns out to be a mass attorney, he's not even licensed in the state of New Hampshire, trying also to get a release. Remember the release now. Walker's release, Friedman's release, CCR's release, Tober's release. Everybody wants a release. I wonder what they've done. So, now they're kicking everything out of the PCC. They don't even have to answer it because it's out of statutes. Who's doing it? Their good buddy McHugh. The judge. Completely corrupt. And he's not the only one. All you have to ask yourself is, how many people are afraid of these guys? You want to know if it's true? Ask an attorney to represent. I don't have an attorney. You're looking at my attorney. Remember the 4,141? Yeah, I can't get one of them. So what do they all know that you don't? That I'm trying to tell you. All you got to do is listen. It all makes sense. There's 1,000 pieces. They all fit. Okay, so now the PCC's kicking everything out. Friedman, I sent it to the BBO. Who sits on the BBO? John Friedman. I just sent them a tape where my attorney, previously, Dallas Sedgwick from Wiggins, calls me. Now this is somebody I'm suing, and says that my attorney, Nick, has called her to give her an attorney, Marisa DeLinks. And that is Dallas Sedgwick's attorney. Don't miss this. My attorney gives the person we're suing from Wiggins and Norrie an attorney.
Mike, it's Darla Sedgwick. It's Monday evening, and I just wanted you to know that I did call Nick. Apparently, he wasn't there, of course, because I called a little late. Just caught up with appointments this afternoon, and I had also left a message for Marisa on Saturday because I did have a couple of attorneys from Boston. One that was recommended by the insurance company. One was my own lead that I had from a friend in New Hampshire. So I just was wanting to maybe just run by them if they felt comfortable with that. That's all. Just kind of trying to figure out the next step with everything that's happened. That's all. Just very confusing. So anyway, you could feel free to give me a call if you'd like. If not, that's fine. I just wanted to let you know that I had called since I indicated to you that I would. Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's part of the cover-up. He had to get someone he trusted. That's who got her, to make sure she doesn't talk to anybody. So, Nick's late with the court. It's beats of Dallas Sedgwick. Friedman stops all the complaints at the BBO, which is similar to the PCC here. So Massachusetts screeches into this cover-up. Mass knows what's going on in New Hampshire, you know. I've spoken to too many people in Massachusetts, powerful people, who know. Now Friedman goes to me. You ready? He's going to go to the FBI. In fact, he lives on the same street as U.S. Attorney Ortiz. And he's going to seek there. Hit that.
Hey, Mike, John Friedman got your message. Sorry I missed your call. You called my cell, I was in the office, so it doesn't ring through. In any event, I don't know about any meeting on Friday. It is not including me. I don't see any reason for delay. I don't know what Nick is thinking in terms of the delay. I certainly think that irrespective of the lawsuit, going to the authorities would be the smart move now. I also
Hit it.
wanted to confirm with you.
John Friedman, go to the federal authorities. Right? He's telling me he can help me with the federal authorities. One of the few attorneys that can open up a case. He's telling me to go to the authorities. He's telling me how he knows Ortiz. None of them go. Bob Jutras, my divorce attorney, he's going to the FBI. Let's find out who he talked to. None of them went. They're telling me that they're going. That's part of the cover-up. If they're telling me they're going, I'm thinking that I don't have to. They're representing me there. That's part of the cover-up. It never went anywhere. That's his job. His job was to protect the banking commission. Go through those bogus consent orders. But then he needed a release. Gary Lambert, state senator of New Hampshire, one of the boys, running for Congress. Who do you think asked me to try to mediate and get his buddy off? Friedman. Except for I looked. Did you know they worked in the same building in Boston? Friedman incriminated himself in a deposition. He needed out. Release, 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 release. See? All right. So now, the courts. I've got to hire attorneys. Now, Friedman. I go to Friedman. Why can't you represent me, John? Till finally, after months and months and months, you know what I find out? Hit it.
Hey, Mike, John Friedman. Trying to explain to you, we're going to try to explain to you the problem that we have. We would have the same problem that Morrison Mahoney had, which is we have a partner here, Mike Tracy, that does insurance defense for legal malpractice. If we were to take the case on, we would have
Hit
to
it.
suing.
So the guy who sits on the BBO is saying, we would have the same conflict. Liberty International. Yet I couldn't get that out of them for months. So guess what? They all had the same conflict. Remember the word they used, global settlement? Don't miss this. The people I'm hiring to sue work for the same team. Global settlement. Can you say organized crime? Because that's what it is. All right. So now they're corrupting it here. CCR was the people who created the tax returns. They had to corrupt them for Walker. What if I tell you his first cousin ran the procedure? Larry Schwartz? Give him immunity. See that guy, Tim Powell, IRS? 4 years ago I was on the phone with him when I thought we settled. He was telling me he was retiring that day. What if I tell you 4 years later he's still right there? See, he's part of it too. This is a very coordinated effort, and they all work well together. So, I then figure this out. I have to step out away from these law firms. And you know what I found out? I heard one after another. Ted Little, Tony Driscoll, Tony Ajeri, Chris Driscoll, Neil Pike. What their job was and has been, destroy evidence. Wow, that's going out there. But that's exactly what they've been doing. One after another. Let's look at Ted. is Ted coming into the office on his last day of employment. See, I've got text messages and emails going to Ted to file a lawsuit against Morris in Mass. Here he comes in with a little computer bag. Here's him taking multiple trips on his last day to the shredding machine. And his buddy, both to the shredding machine. Last evening in employment. And don't miss, this is where Ted was coming in. He left with a suitcase that he had to lean over to carry. He picked up his personal stuff the next day. He didn't even come in with a suitcase. How many of you go to work and leave with a suitcase you didn't bring? That's Ted. Tony's job was to slow down the IRS investigation. They had distinct orders what to do. You know where Tony used to work? How about Morris Mahoney and Divine Millimat? Then we replaced him with a gentleman named Chris Driscoll. You'll love this. I started getting a feel of Driscoll very early. So after 4 days, I fired him. Except for he was still on the Morris Mahoney case. So the court had to send him emails on what was happening. You know where the emails went to? And we have them. Liberty Mutual. He was working for the people that were suing. You can't even make that up. The court's sending it to him. How's that? Just in closing, speaking of all the releases, Tober asked for a release. In mediation, that I spent $250,000 to get to. You know the only stipulation in the mediation was giving Mr. Tover his own release. His associates a release. His experts released. You know why his experts were released? Because they were destroying evidence also. In fact, Judge Goldstein, who ran the mediation, he called it something he's never seen in 40 years. He told my ex-wife, my suggestion is you find an attorney that will represent you and not himself. See, he needed a release. He leveraged the divorce. Went on to spend another $500,000 for less of a deal. I made my ex 4 offers. In a deposition, she only received 2, and not the 2 in the last year. See, statutes of limitations. So I just want to see the PCC and the JCC, let's not miss them. Because every time he throws out a case, you get a chance to go to an appeal or turn in the judge. That's them. That's them. These guys come from them. It's going nowhere. And you want to know if they're corrupt? I want to show you something. This is the corruption risk report, nationwide. A series of grades. You'll be slightly distressed to find out that we have 3 Fs. One of the Fs is called Ethics Enforcement Agencies. That's those. F for failure. You can't fail unless you had corruption. You're failing from not catching corruption. Because it's them. They're the ones corrupt. What a system. Department of Revenue is sitting with falsified tax returns. They reported to the AGs. They don't have anything. Governor, Department of Revenue, myself, nothing. Dead. So let's take a look. They did get an A. There it is. Internal auditing. According to them, they're doing great. Everybody else, they got an F. You know what? Just before I sign up, the legislature. I sat, had a luncheon, spoke to a number of them. Some of them are very well intended. Some of them are even bright. Let's take a look at Bill O'Brien. He was your Speaker of the House. I had the opportunity to speak to him. What looked like a town hall meeting. And I went over my narrative to people. I then asked Bill, on camera now, and we have the film, on the third asking, Bill, do you know what I'm saying about here is corrupt? His answer was yes. He's also a lawyer in New Hampshire, by the way. So Bill, do you know what I'm saying?
I know I do. I practice in both states.
So you know what I'm talking
corrupt
about.
here. I think it's systemic.
So you've been a lawyer in the state of New Hampshire.
Sure.
So as a lawyer in the state of New Hampshire, and about these people you don't piss off and you don't bump into, you know that's true.
There's a problem here. You remember?
But do you know that's true?
You remember the Thayer case, for example? That was a real
I
problem.
know. But
That
I'm
was-
saying, do you
that was
know
just
what I'm
corruption
telling you?
in the Supreme Court. It's just
But as a lawyer, you know what I'm saying.
yeah.
And you know the players that I'm saying. I thought you did. And then he went later to Kevin Abard, who, as you notice, has been doing a lot of our videos for Speak Up, and said to him that you could get pulled over and they could find a pound of cocaine in your car. That came from the Speaker of the House. Was he telling him to shut up? Go ahead and threaten me. I just introduced you to all of this. You've got to ask yourself, I'm going to bring you back to your kids again. Do you want them growing up in this? Or do you just want to say, what can I do? Because that's what you've asked. Many people have gone to me, what can I do? You'd be surprised how simple this is. I had a meeting with John Kakavas. I told him how to bring it all down. Except for he's included. They tend not to like to do that. And that is, pick two, any two. I got a long list. We give two people immunity. A couple of lawyers. And they will give you everybody. Two. 2 out of 40, 2 out of 50. Pick two, any two. Immunity. They all go to jail. Quite literally. So it's not that hard. It's not something we can't do. Which is why I tell the FBI, hey, we recorded 3 bugs in my office. So, they don't investigate. They know. We're calling for help. There's nobody. We go to Washington. We take our immunities. And we get something to read for the next 2 years. And just maybe, we changed the future of our children. Maybe we give them hope. Think about what's going on. I can't tell you it's just here. Was the world champion of horse racing. I also built the largest brokerage firm in the country. So I'm not somebody that just fell off the cabbage truck. And if you remember, and you can still look, I wrote a narrative in horse racing 2.5 years ago. From that narrative to having the biggest RICO arrests in the history of horse racing, anywhere from 30 to 40, they've already had 5, based on that narrative. Now I have another narrative. It's right here. They said I was crazy. Same guys are going to jail. So are they. Let's see how many of them you got them saying that I'm lying, I'm crazy. There'll be no more of that. Because they know. They know I have all the evidence. The question is, what are you going to do? Are you going to turn around and change the way things are to leave a better world for our children? That's what I'm fighting for, not for money. I've had money. I've had fame. But what I might not have had living in the state of New Hampshire without living under organized crime.